Saint Ignatius today has become one of the most important figures of our Christian life. Aside from his pilgrimage across Europe, he founded the Society of Jesus and wrote the Spiritual Exercises, the book that has since gone on to become the centre of our Ignatian spirituality. And how exactly did such a man come to be? What happened to him for him to become a saint? And why is he so important today that schools, universities, and even whole churches have been named after him? Ignatius was born Inigo Lopez de Loyola in 1491, most likely around his feast day, the 1st of June. His mother died when he was only 6, and his father followed when he was 16. As a result, his childhood was drastically cut short. However, as the youngest child in the family, he was still always the most indulged of his siblings. He and his family lived in a large house that was almost fortress-like named Loyola Castle in the Basque province near modern-day Zarales, east of Bilbao today. His family were heavily involved in his local wars, which explained why his home and many others in the Basque province were heavily fortified. Inigo was born in between two of these local wars, and he lived most of his childhood in peace. His religious education at this time was not very heavy or pious. At around age 15 to 16, Inigo was sent away to complete education in the home of Don Juan Velázquez. He was the chief treasurer for the Kingdom of Castile, and as a friend of Inigo's father, he was glad to take in the child. Inigo was living in style, with children of a similar age to his own. Due to Don Juan's high ranking, he got to know the king, queen, and the court, and enjoyed privileges as one of the then high aristocracy. He enjoyed hunting, jousts, tournaments, soirees, gambling, and romance. Suddenly, the soon-to-be Charles I began to take control of the region. He disagreed with Don Juan's idea of what is best for the economy. Disgrace fell over the Velázquez family. Don Juan tried to assert his economic viewpoint by dominating him in war, but as expected, he lost. Defeated and heavily in debt, he died in 1517. Inigo was left with nothing. To earn money to survive, Inigo joined the army in service of the Duke, and fought against those who opposed Charles I. It was in one particular battle, however, that his life would be changed forever. During the siege of Pamplona in 1521, Inigo's leg was struck by a cannonball, instantly shattering it. The enemy, the French, had so much respect for Inigo and his military skills that they carried him back to their castle to give him temporary treatment. However, in order for him to be fully healed, Inigo needed to go back to Loyola for a lot of waiting. At home, doctors recommended he have an operation on his leg to realign the bones as they were out of place. However, all the painful work ended up being done for nothing. The operation was unsuccessful. At this point, he was on the verge of death. He was given the last rites. He would be dead at 30 with nothing really to remember him by. Fortunately, Inigo lived past the operation to tell the tale, but it was an arduous and boring year of waiting before he could walk again. Since there were no wheelchairs in 1521, it meant that Inigo would be stuck in bed until the damage was repaired. The only two books that were available to Inigo for entertainment were The Life of Christ and The Lives of the Saints. He read these books and began to take a liking for them. Each day he would reflect on the things he read, and pass the time through reading, reflection, and daydream. He realised that his desires before of romance and gambling went away quickly, and a new desire to follow Jesus left him with lasting happiness. When Inigo was able to walk again, his first decision was that in order to be an effective pilgrim, he must follow in the steps of Jesus and go to the places he did. He deduced that he must make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and so ignored his family's wishes to stay in Loyola Castle, of which he'd be an heir, and began his pilgrimage journey. His first destination was the Benedictine monastery of Montserrat, high on the mountain. Here, Inigo symbolically gave up his sword to the Black Madonna, expressing his change from riches and a soldier's life to that of a pilgrim beggar. He traded his own noble clothing for that of a sackcloth and stayed in the nearby town of Manresa. From Manresa, he began to travel by boat to Barcelona en route to Jerusalem. However, for some unknown reason, he was delayed for 11 months. He lived by begging, obtaining lodgings at the Dominican monastery, and attended liturgies with the friars, working in a hospital nearby, and spending up to 7 hours of a day in prayer. Inigo passed many hours of praying time in a cave, which has today become a hotspot for many modern pilgrimages. It was here he developed his spiritual exercises, but did not yet release them to the public. The key principle among this was that of finding God in all things, something we still value as one of the key ideas of being a Jesuit. One day, in Inigo's fifth and most important religious experience, Ignatius sat down beside the Cardener River and gazed at its waters. As he stared, he reflected and experienced a new understanding of religion and his faith. Ignatius himself said of the experience that it surpassed all the others combined in terms of their importance in his own life. At the start of 1524, he began to travel back to Barcelona and decided that in order to be able to teach people, he needed a much more formal education. During the 2 years he was in Barcelona, he primarily studied Latin, the main language used by the church at the time. When he was in Spain, he was arrested 2 times for preaching without a degree. Inigo left for the University of Paris in 1529, not satisfied with his Spanish education, and began again by the Parisian road. At this time, he also changed his name to Ignatius, to make him seem a more respectable figure. By now he had collected 4 other followers, who along with him would all wear sackcloths with the sole mission to serve others, particularly the poor. After 5 years, Ignatius completed his bachelor in philosophy and went to the famous college of St. Barbara. Here was the first time he gave the full of spiritual exercises to 3 of his associates. They showed promise from the experience, but eventually went their different ways. More importantly, however, he had 2 roommates at the university who would later become his most important associates, Francis Xavier and Peter Faber. After a long preparation period, he gave them both the spiritual exercises with outstanding results. This also happened with 4 more companions, Lainez, Salmeron, Rodriguez, and Bobadilla. On 15th August 1534, they all came together to commit themselves to the Lord by vow, marking a major step in their religious journey. Ignatius, by this time, had already graduated as a teacher of theology in 1533, meaning he could now teach anyone his spiritual exercises legally. He got his master's degree and finally graduated in 1535. On the 24th of June 1537, they were all ordained as priests, and Ignatius conducted his first Mass 18 months later. Since then, the newly founded Society of Jesus spread their values across the globe. Their size grew to 11 people, and they travelled to Rome. Peter Faber left for India to spread Ignatius' spiritual exercises, never to return from his continuous preaching around the world. Today, the Jesuit influence has reached across the globe, with huge amounts of followers around the world. Without the incredible work of St. Ignatius, we would never have such a prominent religious order today.